Hello lovely people, my name is Emma and today I'm coming at you with a book haul. Now this is a haul for December, January and the early half of February. It's just sort of a collection of books I've amassed through a variety of different sources. I'm going to go chronologically in how I got them today rather than breaking them into any like particular subgenre or category in any meaningful way like that, because I think it's just easier. So the first collection of books I have is I bought 3 before Christmas when I was out shopping with my friend Catherine. The first one is the Earthsea 4 books by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is on my list of classics that I want to get to this year, or Ursula Le Guin is in general. So the Earthsea quadrilogy, sure, let's go with that, is one that I've been quite keen to read. I believe I read some of the first book of the Earthsea series in school when I was in like year 6 or year 7, but I can't actually confirm it, so I'm quite excited to jump into this one and see. Then in the same shopping trip I bought 2 books from John Wyndham. One you've already seen, I bought The Midwich Cuckoos that I read in January, and it's freaking fantastic. And then I also bought a prettier copy of Day of the Triffids. I have like a very vintage Penguin paperback one somewhere on my shelves, but I really don't like it, whereas I really love this style, and this particular edition they have all of his books like this, and I have one for the Chrysalid somewhere in this edition as well, so I'm just kind of like slowly collecting these, and I'm really excited to get to Day of the Triffids given how much I enjoyed this one. John Wyndham's like a classic sci-fi writer from the 1950s, and his writing really reminds me of H.G. Wells, so it was wonderful. Then I've got a couple of books that I got around Christmas time. The first one is Joe Nesbø's Macbeth, which I have actually read. I really enjoyed it. This was a gift from Andy's parents. It's a retelling of Shakespeare's play Macbeth, which was commissioned by the Hogarth Shakespeare project basically, and it's setting Macbeth in like a modern day Norwegian crime drug syndicate vibe. It was really fun. Then my sister gifted me Dinosaurs Without Bones by Anthony J. Martin. She actually bought me a copy of The Dinosaur Artist that I'm currently buddy reading with Olive, but I already have a copy of it because I bought one like nearly a year ago now, and I'm finally getting around to it. So after we established that yes, I did already own that book, I sent this one, a link of this one, to my sister, and she picked it up for me. This is looking at trace fossils, so these are not fossilized dinosaur bones or anything to do with the animal itself. It's all about like the footprints and plant matter and droppings and things that are left behind, so it's looking at the evidence that we can get independent to the bones directly themselves. I'm really psyched about this. I followed Anthony Martin on Twitter for a while and he's fantastic. I think this is going to be so nerdy and so exciting, and I really want to get to it soon. Then my mum bought me a gorgeous copy of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I have indeed read this. I listened to it on audiobook, but I didn't own a physical copy, and this is in one of the gorgeous Virago Modern Classics editions, of which I have 2 on my shelf that I need to get to. Another Daphne du Maurier and then The Talented Mr. Ripley. Can't remember who wrote that. So it's exciting to be expanding this collection, and I've been meaning to pick up a copy of Rebecca for a while because I really enjoyed the listening experience, but I'd quite like to sit and read it at some point again. So I'm pleased to have this on my shelf to add to my gorgeous classics collection. And then one that technically Mum bought me before Christmas, but we totally forgot to grab it out of the bag when we were doing like Christmas present shopping, was The Medici, The Godfathers of the Renaissance by Paul Strathern. This is a book that I picked up when I was with Mum in Topping & Co in Ely. It's one that I've been eyeing up on their shelves for ages, and she finally was like, for God's sake, I'll just buy it for you, it's fine. But then we totally forgot to grab it out of her bag. It's about the Medici, who are a very powerful, influential family in Italy in the medieval era, I believe. Can't find any reference to dates on the back, apologies. Clearly I need to read the book to find out more about the time period. The reason why I was interested in this is when I was a kid I read the Stravaganza series by Mary Hoffman, I believe. I will link it all down below, like they'll be commented down below. That's like an alternative universe of the time period that the Medici were big in Italy, but the twist is they call them the Decimi, but it's vibing off the same idea. So off the back of that, the Medici are a family that I've always been kind of intrigued by and would like to learn more, but I've never felt like I could commit to a full non-fiction book about them, whereas now I'm reading so much more non-fiction, this is significantly less intimidating, so I'm quite excited to get to it at some point. God knows when though. Then my dad was doing a huge clear out of his books, and he just sent me a couple of photos of some stacks and was like, anything in this pile that you'd like? So I sent him back a few, and this is kind of the collection from there. So he sent me 2 Eric Amblers. Eric Ambler is some kind of crime espionage thriller writer. A lot of these are like, I just kind of pinged him a message being like, if you think I'd enjoy it, add it to the pile. So he's popped 2 of these in here. I actually think Andy's going to enjoy these. They really seem like the kind of thing that he would really like. They're sort of a modern classic twist, sort of that crime noir thriller genre. So I'm intrigued by these, but I kind of grabbed them more for Andy, so I don't really know if I'm ever going to get around to them or when that would be. Then I grabbed from him Jean Rye's Wide Sargasso Sea. This is a retelling or a reimagining of Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, focusing on Bertha, who is Mr. Rochester's first wife. I've not read Jane Eyre. It might be one that I try and get to this year, and I do want to read this after I read Jane Eyre, so I figured given that Dad was about to get rid of a copy, I might as well grab it from him so as I have that ready to go once I do finally get around to Jane Eyre. One that, in fact, a couple that I've read now in a row, Andrew Kaufman's All My Friends Are Superheroes. This is a gorgeous little book. It's one of my favourite books out there. It's stunning. It's a world where everyone's a superhero, but by a superhero we just mean one tiny quirk of theirs that's like really just dialed up to 11 and is turned to the nth degree, and it's a love story between the main character, who is not a superhero, and his relationship with the perfectionist who has been hypnotised to not see him, but has these absolutely stunning tiny little snippets of other superheroes in this world, and it's just beautiful. It's so short and so sweet and lovely, and I adored this book. So when Dad was getting rid of it, I was like, nope, that's mine. On a similar note, we have Tom's Midnight Garden by Philippa Pearce. This is an iconic children's classic that I listened to on audiobook time and time and time again with Dad when we were doing long drives between his house and my mum's house. This plus a whole bunch of things like Stig of the Dump and The Wind in the Willows are just like real foundations of my childhood and my childhood audiobook experience. I might do a whole video on some of my favourite childhood audiobooks. Would you be interested in that? Let me know in the comments down below. But this was definitely one that I adored. So again, when Dad was like, oh, I'm getting rid of my copy, I was like, nope, mine, mine, mine. And then we also have John Hersey's Hiroshima. This is a non-fiction, and it is a kind of expose of what happened in Hiroshima after the atomic bomb went off. I've read it quite a few years ago now, but I just remember it being so intense and so just like emotionally charged and incredible, and it's one that I would quite like to reread again at some point, so I might go for it in some kind of sort of like classics non-fiction time, because again, it's super short. I believe that this was actually published in a, yes, it was a, this account was in the New Yorker, and it was an entire issue in its own right, and now it's been made into a book that people can buy. One that I know nothing about is this one, that if you can read the font of that, that's very impressive. I'm going to read the spine. It's called The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea by Yukio Mishimi. As a lot of my channel, I'm trying to read more translated fiction this year, so I know literally nothing about this, like absolutely nothing. I don't want to know anything. I just grabbed it from Dad because, hey, it's translated fiction and it looks fun. Awful font choice though. What is that? We have George Orwell's Coming Up for Air. I don't actually know anything about this one in particular. No idea if it's one of Orwell's fiction or non-fiction or any of the situation like that, but I really enjoy Orwell's writing, so I'm always more than happy to have more of it on my shelf. I believe I might even have this one on ebook anyway, but it's nice to have a copy, and like I said, Dad was getting rid of a bunch of these, so I was like, no, I'm gonna add a few of them to my shelf, so this is one of them. And then the final one I have from Dad is Silk by Alessandro Barrico. This is a story, it's like I believe it's fiction, and it's a historical fiction set in the time where the Silk Trail and the Silk Road was very big, and it's some kind of love story set around that. Again, it's super short. Dad really loves his like short, sweet, crisp books that don't pad out with much in them, so again, I don't know a crazy amount. I think this was one that Dad actually gave me ages ago that I was going to try and read when I was like a teenager, and I never got around to it, so I'm quite keen to get to it. And it might even be translated fiction. Yes, it is. It's translated fiction, so in which case, like, it's definitely going to make it a priority for this year because I'm trying to read more of it, so this is brilliant. Okay, now we have the stack of new books that I have bought since the start of the year, including within it some of the books that I've bought for the BookTube prize for non-fiction, of which I am one of the judges. So I'm going to roll through those quite quickly. You may have heard these already mentioned in my February TBR, but I wanted to kind of show you the copies that I have. So for the non-fiction BookTube prize award, I'm going to link everything down below for it if you've no idea what I'm on about, but it's a prize that's on BookTube, and I am one of the groups, a judge for one of the earlier groups, so I have 6 books that I'm getting to by the end of March. You'll hear all my thoughts about them after this round of judging is over. So I have 3 physical copies, and then I do have some audiobooks and ebooks for them. One book is John Gertner's The Ice at the End of the World. This is a journey about a book about Greenland, Greenland's buried past, and the hub that it's becoming for climate change science. So this looks very interesting. It does talk about some of the history of discovery in Greenland as well, so I'm quite excited about this because I'm really in the mood for some like exploration, like historical exploration books. I very nearly bought Michael Palin's Erebus today because of that desire, but it turns out a mate of mine from work has it, so I'm going to borrow her copy, which then meant that I didn't feel guilty about buying a different book that we were about to see instead. So this is one I need to get to. Then we have On Chapel Sands by Laura Cumming. This is a true crime story about Laura's mother, who disappeared for 5 days when she was a child, and nobody has any idea where she went. Her mother has no memory of it anyway, and basically didn't know that this incident occurred for most of her life. So this looks kind of interesting, not too sure, but yes, this is another one that I'm judging, and this happens to be a signed first edition. I didn't buy it because of that, like it just so happened that that's all they had in the store. Another one is Savage Appetites by Rachel Monroe. This is about women's obsession with true crime, and it's 4 particular stories focused on, it's the detective, the victim, the defender, and the killer. This has been very well received by BookTube in general, and I had to get this one shipped over from America, so it was hella expensive, so fingers crossed I like it. I'm also reading The Ungrateful Refugee by Dinah Nayeri. This is a true story about a woman's experience as a refugee from Iran, interspersed with some other people's stories and looking at kind of the emotional toll that being a refugee has. Then I also have No Visible Bruises by Rachel Louise Snyder. This is a book about domestic violence and domestic abuse. I have this on ebook. And then I also have How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kennedy. I have this on audiobook that is looking at race and how to actively combat racism rather than just not be racist yourself. So those I am reading all for the BookTube Prize Award, hence why I got them. And now I have a stack of other books that I've got over the past couple, like month and a half, shall we say. So I picked up a copy of Little Women by Louise May Alcott. This is the only extra book I have for my kind of classics collection for the Penguin English Library paperbacks, which is what I collect. I'm planning on reading this in March, I believe, because the Classics Community, which is a group mainly run by Lucy the Reader, who is, as we probably all know on BookTube, a huge classics nut. She's like got a whole Goodreads group, and there is a read-along happening in there about this, so I'm going to hopefully join in with this one, assuming that I get through all the non-fiction that I need to as well. Then I figured given like all of this stuff that's on the horizon, I needed 2 fun ones. Again, if you'd have seen my February TBR, you'll have seen both of these before, but I've got In the Labyrinth of Drakes by Marie Brennan. This is book 4 of the Lady Trent series, which is a whole dragon Victorian almost like zoology nature kind of style fantasy book. Great fun, and I'm really excited to jump back in it soon. And then I also have The Mermaid by Christina Henry. This is a YA retelling of the Little Mermaid myth, with the introduction of P.T. Barnum, who was one of the very early pioneers of science but also freak shows over in America in the kind of turn of the century, 19th to 20th century time period. It was the one that The Greatest Showman was about, but The Greatest Showman gets it all horribly wrong. So I'm quite excited for this one. Christina Henry is on my list of authors I want to try and get to this year. I also picked up super small one, which is On Art and Life by John Ruskin. This is part of the Penguin Great Books or Great Ideas mini-series, where they take like snippets of well-known big non-fiction books and then reduce them down into kind of smaller little pamphlet size to give a way of like testing out an author's writing before committing to the book as a whole. Ruskin was one of the art critics around at the time of the Pre-Raphaelites, which is an art time period and era that I really love and find fascinating. So I've never read any of Ruskin's work directly, so I'm excited about this, and if I get on with it I might go and get the actual like full version and read a bit more of Ruskin's work. Then I nipped into the works with my partner and I picked up The Prison Doctor by Dr. Amanda Brown. It's fairly well known on this channel. I'm a super huge fan of medical books and medical journals in general, so diaries I guess more than journals. So this is about a woman's time as a doctor in Britain's most notorious jails. I thought it would be really fascinating, and it was only like £2, so I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but I haven't got a medical book on my shelves anymore. I read Working Stiff recently, so I need another one for when I'm really in that mood to jump in with this. The whole medical like diary thing since Adam Kay's This Is Gonna Hurt has absolutely exploded. When I was in the bookstore today, of which I'll get to my other books that I bought from there in a second, there were so many examples of like the diary of a cardiologist, the diary of an intensive care surgeon, the diary of this nurse, the diary of that thing, and it was like, okay guys, even for me there is a limit for how many of these books can exist, but I think the prison one could be interesting because that's a spin on it that I haven't looked at all, so that'd be good fun. Fun's maybe the wrong word for that. kind of a book, you know what I mean. And now I have 3 books that I picked up today, as well as the couple that I picked up for the Booktube Prize Award. So I have 3 that I allowed myself to get. One is Luke Heaton's A Brief History of Mathematical Thought. I'm really excited to get to this. I did a short course in the history of mathematics when I was studying for my A-levels through the Open University, like in my spare time, and I absolutely adored it. And since then I've been kind of eyeing up the idea of like reading more about the history of mathematics, but a lot of the books out there haven't quite landed on exactly the area that I really want to read, whereas this looks like it's almost a straight rip of the syllabus I did, which is super helpful because I did that course now very nearly a decade ago and I can't remember most of it, which means I really want to jump in with something to familiarise myself with it again before going on to read some of the more specialist books that I kept finding in bookstores and being like, this looks cool, but I don't have the background knowledge anymore to be able to do this. So this is kind of my dipping my toe back into that area, because you know I need more non-fiction topics that I want to read. Then I have 2 nature writing ones. I've got The Secret Life of Trees by Colin Tudge. As the title suggests, it's a book about trees and I'm very excited about it. Since reading Lab Girl, I'm in a huge botany kick right now, so I'm super psyched for this one. And then the final book I want to talk about is Tamed by Alice Roberts. This is 10 Species That Changed Our World, and this is an anthropological look at 10 species that humans have domesticated over the years, whether it be animals or plants, to our own benefit and how we've tamed them. So apparently this is for fans of Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens, which I super enjoyed and I'm really excited about it. Flicking through it, there are subtitles like Ancient Potatoes and The Chicken of Tomorrow. I can't wait. I really want to read about ancient potatoes. My mates at the bookstore thought I was well weird for that. So yes, so that's it from me. My camera battery is flashing at me very dramatically, so I need to get off camera. But this has been my book haul. What do you think? As always, weird and eclectic, but I can't do anything different here, can I? Have a wonderful reading week, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye!